WWE Fastlane is in the books. I am the Solomonster, and this is your Fastlane 2023 review. You know, Fastlane on paper looked like a very short show, 5 matches. This will probably end up being the shortest WWE pay-per-view of the year. Lengthwise, it went almost the full 3 hours, but not a very big card coming into this show, with a main event of Seth Rollins defending the World Heavyweight Championship in a last man standing match against Shinsuke Nakamura. And once we found out earlier in the day that Rollins and Nakamura were going to be going on last, a lot of people started thinking maybe we're going to get a Money in the Bank cash in. Maybe if the Judgment Day lose their tag team titles, we might actually get a Money in the Bank cash in on the show. The Judgment Day did lose their tag team titles, but there was no Money in the Bank cash in. Not even an attempt. Seth Rollins retains his World Heavyweight Championship. He is the last man standing. Adios, Shinsuke Nakamura. Sayonara. You have served your purpose well. 2 pay-per-view matches against Seth Rollins. Back-to-back losses for Nakamura. To the back of the line you go. Now it's on to the next, whoever that may be. Rollins is still the world champion. It was also a big night for LA Knight because LA Knight was in a tag team match with John Cena as his tag team partner against the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso. And indeed, John Cena and LA Knight picked up their very first and what may end up being their only win as a tag team. We also have new tag team champions, Finn Bálor and Damian Priest, losing the undisputed tag team titles to the team of Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. It was the night of makeshift tag teams on the show. Cody and Jey, first time ever tag team. John Cena and LA Knight, first time ever tag team. So we have new tag team champions with Cody and Jey. And after what we saw on SmackDown last night, we had the Bloodline, we had the Judgment Day reaching an unholy alliance. We had a handshake with Rhea Ripley and Paul Heyman that the two factions would help each other out. They would work together for a common cause. That was 24 hours ago. 24 hours later, there was no interaction between the two sides. They didn't try to help each other. There was no acknowledgement of each other. It's almost like it didn't even happen. So I'm not quite sure what the point of that was. I thought it would play into tonight's show in some way. It was the go-home show last night. I figured it was going to play into Fastlane, and it really didn't. The LWO was down 1 man in their 6-man tag against Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. And it was, to the surprise of no one, if you listened to the stream last night, my guess was that it was going to be Carlito, because Carlito has been under contract now for several months. He's been back in WWE. Some people didn't realize it. They just haven't used him until now. Carlito was the mystery man. He was the mystery partner for Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar. Of course, he showed up fashionably late and let his partners get the hell beaten out of them for about 10 minutes before he finally decided to show up, as any good tag team partner would do. But yes, Carlito is back. He is now part of the LWO. And for those wondering if we were going to get a Jade Cargill appearance, we did on the pre-show. And she didn't do much. But we did have the arrival, technically the first appearance in WWE of Jade Cargill on this show. And they showed a replay of it as well during the main card. She got all dressed up. Well, I mean, not much. I mean, she didn't leave a whole lot to the imagination here. She wasn't really wearing much. She was pretty much wearing what she used to wear in AEW. She showed up like she was ready for a match, but she walked into the building and then we never heard from her. We never saw her again. So maybe she was there to be a fan and just watch the show like you and me. But that will technically go down as the very first appearance of Jade Cargill, who was greeted by Triple H as they walked into the building together. Still no mention of what brand she is going to be on, although, spoiler, the belief is that she will be on the Raw brand. So she's bypassing NXT and she's going straight to the main roster. They are vaulting this woman right to the main roster right away, and we shall see what they have in store for her. But when this show is over, my overall kind of just nuts and bolts analysis of the show, now that it's in the books, it was a good show. There were some really good matches on the show. It was a fine way, I thought, to spend 3 hours, but it will go down as one of, if not the weakest lineup, I would say, of all the WWE pay-per-views this year. because this is a year of very strong events that WWE has put on, from the Royal Rumble to WrestleMania, Elimination Chamber, and everything since. Backlash in Puerto Rico, Money in the Bank. They have had a very, very strong year when it comes to their PLEs. And so, in a year of great shows, WWE gave us a good show tonight. And I think that's the best way that I can really describe this Fastlane show. We're going to talk about it from top to bottom here. As I mentioned, this is your Fastlane review. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you are new here. Super chats are open. I do read your super chats as we go along. A little bit later on, we'll hang out and do that. And again, if we can hit 500 likes is the goal that I set for Be the Booker. I don't know if we'll hit it or not, but that is the goal. So hit that thumbs up. So there were no kickoff matches. Again, 5 matches on this show. Usually they do at least 6. So I was surprised they didn't add anything at the last minute. Sometimes, like at Payback, they have a talk show segment. They had the Grayson Waller effect. They didn't have anything like that on this show. I thought when I saw Jade on the pre-show, they were going to trot her out for some sort of introduction on the main pay-per-view, and they didn't do that. So no kickoff matches. We got Pat McAfee narrating the opening video. This show, of course, being from Indianapolis, and he being a former member of the Indianapolis Colts, they know him very well in Indianapolis, so it made sense for him to make an appearance on this show. And they had Indy speed cars on stage. They had one on one side, one on the other, and that was part of the decor as far as the stage tonight. They kicked things off with the battle for the undisputed WWE Tag Team titles. It was Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso teaming for the first time ever, taking on Finn Bálor and Damian Priest for the championship. Actually, I should say the first 15 minutes of the show was video packages and entrances. So a scorching, blazing hot start to this show. 15 minutes of videos and entrances. I felt like I was watching Raw. It's a pay-per-view. Let's get to the action. So finally, they ring the bell. The match is underway. And I should mention this also. The beginning of the match, right when the bell rang, the very start of the match, Michael Cole was trying to win brownie points with the fans on Twitter. And he mentioned, it kind of backfired on him, because he mentioned that the first leader of the Bullet Club, Finn Bálor, and they showed Finn Bálor on screen, taking on a former leader. I should say leader. He didn't say member. He said leader for both. Former leader of the Bullet Club, Finn Bálor, taking on a former leader. Another former leader of the Bullet Club in Cody Rhodes. Now, unless I missed something, I don't believe Cody Rhodes was ever a leader, officially, in Bullet Club. So Cody Rhodes has now, by Michael Cole, been elevated to the position of former leader of Bullet Club. I did not know that. See, I learned something new tonight. And Michael Cole was very proud of this when he said it. He said it out loud. He was very proud. You could tell. So Jey was isolated by the champions early on. He eventually knocked Priest off the apron. One of the stories in this match was that Priest, a little bit later on, suffered a knee injury, and that played into not only the rest of the match, but it played into the possible cash-in later in the show that never happened. But he knocked Priest off the apron, and he avoided a charging Bálor before diving across the ring, and he made the tag out to Cody, who came in. He hit a power slam and a disaster kick to Finn Bálor. Yes, Cody tried to take Omega's spot. I think that may have been what he was thinking. That's why I said he was never officially the leader of the Bullet Club. So when he said it, I had to go back. I was just curious. Did he say leader? Did he say member? Maybe I misheard him. No, he said leader. So Michael Cole will have to, I guess, pop on Twitter, and I'm sure people will let him know about his mistake. But anyway, hey, look, I think it's cool they even acknowledge Bullet Club on TV. That's something that WWE at another time would never have done. So the fact they even acknowledge the existence of Bullet Club, which is still a thing, I think that's pretty cool. So we had Uso and Priest tagged into the match. Jey with a crossbody to Damian Priest, only gets 2. Priest comes back with an elevated flatliner for 2 of his own. And Jey came back with an Uso splash. Bálor cut. He cut it real close on the save after that splash. He was outside the ring. You could see him in the background. He dove in to try to make the save. And he barely made it in the nick of time. So a Cody Cutter takes out Bálor. Jey Uso busts out a spear to take down Damian Priest a la Roman Reigns. Now here comes Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio. Jay heads outside. He takes out Dominic with a super kick. And now he comes face to face with Rhea Ripley. And Jey Uso, if you've been following along, Jey Uso has a thing for Rhea Ripley. So he's looking at Rhea. Rhea's smiling back at him. Looks like she's flirting with him and trying to get his attention. And it worked. That smile was very distracting because Jay got caught on the top rope. Priest got a top rope Hurricane Rana that took Jay down to the mat. But when he landed, he immediately grabbed his knee. And he started selling knee pain. Bálor came off the top with a double stomp to Jay. And he had the match won, but Cody broke things up. Meanwhile, Priest was really selling the knee even more now. All four men stood up at the same time, and they started trading punches, right? So we got the two baby faces, the two heels, and they immediately start going at it. Priest went for a springboard move off the middle rope. He could barely push off with the bad knee, and he ate a kick from Cody. Bálor hit a sling blade on Cody, and Jay super kicked and then covered Bálor, who kicked out. And in doing so, Jay's momentum sent him forward, and Rhea Ripley whacked him in the head with the Money in the Bank briefcase. And down goes Jey Uso. Bálor covered him, only got a 2 count. That was a great fake out. That was a great fake out near fall. They had me there when he got bopped in the head with the briefcase, but Jay kicked out. So JD McFunko Pop Head showed up while Priest and Cody were fighting. Priest climbed on top of the announce table. He was setting up for a move when McDonough accidentally smacked him in the knee with his own briefcase. He hit Priest in the knee with the Money in the Bank briefcase. And that allowed Cody to drop Priest on the desk with a crossroads. And the table did not break. Jay took out Bálor and McDonough with a suicide dive. In the ring, Jay held Bálor in place while Cody executed an assisted Cody Cutter. And the announcers pointed out it was very much like a 1D, something you would see Jimmy and Jay do back when they were still partners. Cody then followed with the crossroads, and he pinned Finn Bálor to win the Undisputed Tag Team titles.
Look at Richie Rich over here dropping all this money on me.
Opener.
Hey, I just want you to know, I think you rock. I don't mean The Rock, A Rock, you rock. And I just wanted you to know that.
Paul Hamilton showing up here with a $100 super chat. Wishing a happy belated birthday to yours truly from the Portland pop star. Says Silver Shamrock is just around the corner. Indeed it is. I'm counting down the days. Hey, Paul, thank you very much, man. The Hundy Bomb is much appreciated, and thank you for the birthday love. Had a lot of fun with everybody on the birthday stream last night, so thank you very much. Somebody in the chat mentioned that Jay is concussed. Is that something they mentioned in the post-show press conference? I have not checked on the status of any injuries coming out of the show, but somebody did mention he's concussed, so let me know where that's from. I mean, that would suck, obviously. Guy just won the tag team title. With a concussion, you never know. He could be out for a week. He could be out for 3 months. So they won the tag team titles, and if that's true, they may well lose them as quickly as they won them. But yes, we have new tag team champions. I thought it was a very good opener. And not only do we have new tag team champions in WWE, we have new tag team champions in AEW as well on the same night. Ricky Starks and Big Bill won the AEW tag team titles from FTR on Collision. Collision went on the air an hour early tonight, and I guess to avoid the pay-per-view, or at least the first hour of it. And so how about that? New tag team champions crowned in both companies. And Jey Uso wins tag team gold for the very first time with someone other than his brother. All the other tag team titles that Jey Uso has ever held have come with Jimmy. And so this is the first time he is a tag team champion in WWE with someone other than Jimmy Uso. And they win tag team gold. I should say silver. They win silver. I call them gold. They're not gold. They're silver. They're nickel belts. So they win the big nickels. And Cody wins his first championship of any kind since coming back to the company last year. Which means that both of them can now appear on either show, which really doesn't mean a damn thing anyway, because 24 hours ago, they showed up on SmackDown, along with half the Raw roster. So it doesn't really matter. You can pretty much go wherever you want. But I guess officially, Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso can now appear on SmackDown. And look who happens to be returning to SmackDown this upcoming Friday, Roman Reigns. Very interesting timing on that. Very interesting timing on that. Maybe now looking ahead, let's, again, I don't have the injury update yet on Jey. I'll check here in a second. But assuming they don't get stripped and Jey is going to be okay, they're the new tag team champions. We look ahead now because it surprised me. I was not expecting them to win the titles. Now they did. Where do you go from here? Well, they have a pay-per-view coming up before Survivor Series, coming up November 4th in Saudi Arabia. It's Crown Jewel. And I could see them doing Cody and Jey defending the tag team titles against Jimmy and Solo. Although Jimmy and Solo, they lost their match tonight. But then again, Cody and Jey were never a team before. They got a tag team title match, so who the hell cares? But I could see that being a match, potentially, for Crown Jewel, right? If they're going to do a War Games match, and we'll find out by the end of this week, Triple H is going to be making an appearance on SmackDown on Friday. And I assume he's not coming out just to wave and spit water in the air. He's going to come out. He's going to make some kind of announcement. It could have something to do with Jade Cargill, because we saw Triple H with Jade earlier tonight. But again, the belief is that Jade is going to Raw. So if he's on SmackDown, that wouldn't make any sense. It could be tied into the announcement of a War Games match, if they're going to bring back War Games for Survivor Series. So you're not going to do a tag team title match then at Survivor Series, because Cody, Jey, Solo, Jimmy, some or all of them are going to be involved in a War Games if there's a War Games. So that's what I'm thinking now as I look ahead to Crown Jewel. Maybe we get that as a match. Here's what I'm more interested in, though, now, coming out of this. Because, again, I wasn't expecting Cody and Jey to walk out with the tag team titles. What I find interesting, though, is going to be the reaction on TV from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Because we know Kevin Owens has established on TV that he does not trust Jey Uso. He does not like him. He does not trust him. He blames Cody for being the one to bring him over to Raw. He's willing to give him a chance to show his true colors, but he doesn't like this whole situation. Well, now they have the tag team titles. Owens and Zayn are going to want the tag team titles back. To do that, they have to do what they did at WrestleMania, which is beat Jey Uso. So that, I think, creates an interesting dynamic now going into the show on Monday, as far as how do they react? What is Kevin Owens' reaction? Or Sami, for that matter. What is their reaction to this development here? And for the people who are wondering as far as what happened on Collision tonight with the tag team titles, FTR lost. Immediately, people went on social media and started hypothesizing, well, what happened here? Is this delayed punishment for Cash Wheeler's arrest? Is this a sign that FTR is on their way out of AEW and they're going to leave? First of all, how many months ago is it that we heard that FTR, and they said themselves, that they re-signed new deals with AEW? It was earlier this year. Tony Khan has them locked down, I'm sure, to multi-year contracts. One of their best friends just signed with the company. CM Punk got fired. Adam Copeland got hired. Nobody looked happier than FTR the other night when Edge made his debut in AEW. They're not going anywhere. I knew that even before Dax tweeted what he did. Dax Harwood had to go on Twitter, because I guess maybe he made a comment on the show about top guys out. They always say that. That's their phrase. Top guys out. It does not mean they're leaving the company. So Dax had to go on Twitter and let everybody know that this is our home. We're not going anywhere. This is our home. Our home is in AEW. So just to kind of cut that off before it turns into a whole thing, FTR is not going anywhere. Just because they lost the titles does not mean they cannot win them back. Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits against the LWO in a match sponsored by Pizza Hut. In case you didn't know, in case you couldn't tell from the barricades and the ring posts and the ring apron and the announcers going on about Pizza Hut, I hope you like pizza, because this match was sponsored by Pizza Hut. And if you think that we're going to see less of the sponsored matches now that Endeavor is involved and Endeavor owns the company, we're going to see a lot more of this. I'm surprised they didn't have Pizza Hut logos all over the canvas. Because you know that's coming next, right? WCW used to do that. It's only a matter of time. You'll have wrestlers coming down to the ring. They'll have little Pizza Hut logos on their gear. They might have LA Knight. LA Knight might have a fucking Slim Jim tattoo on his arm soon. Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde, for the people who maybe did not see SmackDown last night. Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde got demolished by Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. And so they were not medically cleared to compete tonight. And last night, Rey Mysterio came out of the trainer's room and he told Santos Escobar and Zelina Vega, he said, look, I'm going to make a phone call. I'm going to take care of this. And that's how they left it. They left it as a mystery as to who their tag team partner was going to be in this match. The match started with the LWO down one man. It was 3 against 2. The heels had the man advantage. And so they were getting worked over for the majority of the time here by the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley. And Rey Mysterio was in there and he was getting his ass kicked. Mysterio tried to make a comeback. Montez Ford yanked Escobar off the apron, which prompted Zelina Vega to wipe out Ford. Suddenly, with Rey Mysterio down in the ring, okay, we're almost 10 minutes into this match. And these guys have been getting their asses handed to them. All of a sudden, Mysterio is down in the middle of the ring, and their partner finally decided to show up. And yes, not hard to figure out who it was going to be. Carlito is back. Carlito made the big cameo in Puerto Rico at Backlash a few months ago during Bad Bunny's match. And everybody in San Juan lost their minds for Carlito when he came out. It was this great moment. I'll tell you what, you know, I said it at the time and I'll say it now as we get closer and closer to the end of the year. We only have 2 months left in the year. And as we wind down 2023, there have been a lot of great matches this year. And a lot of these matches have the names that you would expect, you know, Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay, right? There's tons of great matches this year. The Bad Bunny Damian Priest match from Backlash is still one of my favorite matches of the entire year. I'm not saying it'll be number 1 when this year is over, but it'll probably crack the top 10 for me. Like, I really enjoyed that match. That match, to me, it just clicked. Everything about it worked. It was fun. It was like the perfect WWE match that you would expect to see today. And I still feel the same way now that I did then. So I just wanted to mention that. Carlito was a part of that. Carlito's cameo in that match was great. But unfortunately, even though Carlito came out at Backlash to his old music, Carlito did not come out to his old music here on this show. He came out to a shittier, inferior, generic version. I can even say a version of his music. They just gave him shittier, inferior, generic music. I don't understand why he could use the old song in May and they couldn't just let him use it again here. If they're not allowed to use the old songs or they're trying to shy away from using the old songs, then why even have him come out to the music the way he did in May? So he came out to new music. This was not the ovation he got in San Juan, but of course the people went nuts. They were happy to see him. Not everybody was expecting him. So he got a great ovation when he came out. I mean, I didn't expect it to be the same anyway. I mean, look, San Juan, Indianapolis, right? 2 different places. He was not going to get the same reaction regardless. But he comes down to the ring. He gets up on the apron and he's reaching for the tag. And they're chanting his name. And Rey Mysterio goes and he makes the tag. And I said it on the Backlash show too. And I'll say it again here. Carlito looks better now than he did 15 years ago during his first run in the company. This guy is in the best shape of his life. He tags into the match. He cleans house, hits a nice drop kick on Montez Ford, clears Angelo Dawkins from the ring. Ray hits him with a seated senton from the apron to the floor. Escobar then hits a suicide dive on Bobby Lashley. Carlito puts Montez down with a backstabber and he pins him to win it for the LWO. I would say the total amount of time that Carlito actually spent in this match was probably 2 minutes. But he picks up the win for his team. When the match was over, we weren't done with the Pizza Hut promotion because when the match was over, a delivery man came up to the announce desk and he delivered a Pizza Hut pizza to Michael Cole and Corey Graves, and then Xavier Woods showed up, and they all chowed down on Pizza Hut to close out the segment. So I hope you like Pizza Hut, because you got plenty of it here on this show. This was not much of a match. It was a very average match. It was all about building up the arrival of Carlito and waiting for the pop and waiting for him to come out and make the save for his partners. They opted to build to it. They made a decision that here's how we're going to introduce this man. We're going to wait, and we're going to have him come out at the most opportune moment, and he'll make the save, and we'll give the people the happy finish that they're expecting. That was the choice that they made. And I can understand them wanting to do it, but let's look at this from a practical point of view here. Okay, let's look at this from a storyline point of view. Why would he show up so late? If Rey Mysterio called this guy last night and said, look, got a favor to ask, right? I need you to be on our side. We're outmanned. We're outgunned here. And Carlito said, sure, I'll be there. Why would Carlito come into the match 10 minutes after it starts? Why would he leave his partners in there to die? Was he stuck in traffic? Is traffic really bad in Indianapolis? Was his flight delayed? I mean, I guess there could be any number of reasons. It was incredibly stupid, though. Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar, they're fighting for their lives in there. And then this guy finally shows up fashionably late. It was a very odd way of reintroducing him. But the crowd loves seeing him. And it's about time. He's been re-signed since, I think, June. I mean, when he came in, we brought him in to work House of Glory. There was talk going around the locker room and the building even that night that he was pretty much going back to WWE. So he's been signed for a while, and they've had him under contract, and they've just been waiting for the right moment to debut him. But I said it even then, like the absolute right way to bring him back is to bring him back as a member of the LWO. It's just the perfect spot for him to be in. And this was over the summer when the LWO felt like it was even hotter than it is now. It's cooled off since then. You had Bad Bunny in May. He was sporting LWO shirt. The LWO shirt was like the top seller in merch in the company. So him being a part of that group is a great spot for him to be in. And he'll be on the SmackDown brand now. And he's a great person to add to that SmackDown roster. It infuses that roster with a solid talent who's very over. And I could see Carlito going on to win back the United States Championship. You know, he's a former U.S. champion. You know, he immediately becomes, I would say, you know, an upper mid-card player. Not a main eventer, but an upper mid-card player on that show. I mean, as long as Roman Reigns is at the top of the food chain on that show, LA Knight is the top babyface, you know, Carlito is not going to be in the main event mix. Could he be there at some point next year? Yes, he could be. It's possible. But for now, he's a solid addition to that mid-card, upper mid-card, you know, group on SmackDown. And so I like that. I like the fact that he has finally debuted and showed his face. Let me welcome everybody who is joining me here for this review, including
Gunther.
our boy Gunther is with us.
Loves Gunther.
Everybody loves Gunther.
All hail Gunther.
Everybody loves Gunther. Hey, Zachariah, thank you for the $50. Zachariah Sitchin, good old ZS, coming in with a 50 spot. I love it. I love it. They showed footage from earlier in the day of an SUV pulling into the arena, into the parking garage, and out walked Jade Cargill. And she stepped out of the vehicle. She was basically in her wrestling gear. She looked fantastic. I mean, when does she not look fantastic? She looked incredible. And she was walking, and they had photographers around her snapping photos. Triple H walks up to her. Triple H grabs her by the wrist, and he's all happy to see her. And so he walks side by side with Jade. They head into the building, and we never saw her again. I guess some very important meetings maybe that she was in behind the scenes. But anybody wondering if she actually did anything on the show, if she cut a promo, if she called somebody out, if she showed up after the women's match? No. We'll have to wait until television this week. And maybe we'll get that first promo from Jade on TV this week. But we did go into the women's match. The women's match was next. It was Charlotte Flair, it was Asuka, and it was Io Sky. for the WWE Women's Championship. Earlier on the kickoff show, Io told Bayley that she had a strategy for the match, and she wanted to go by herself. She did not want Bayley out there with her. She did not want or need Bayley's help. So remember that. So Charlotte immediately sent Io to ringside with a big boot right from the opening bell. And then Asuka sprayed mist in Charlotte's eyes, blinding her. She covers her. Io, though, gets back into the ring and she breaks up the pin. So Charlotte leaves the ring. She's crying. She can't see. Her eyes are on fire. And there's a referee outside with a bottle of water trying to wash the mist that was sprayed into her eyes. She came back into the ring. She caught Asuka with a big boot. Io dove at Charlotte, who caught her and hit a fallaway slam. Charlotte caught Asuka going for a hip attack, and she gave her a suplex. Io then rolled Flair onto her back and then performed a standing double stomp. Io clotheslined Asuka over the top rope. She was playing to the crowd. The crowd was very quiet. Very, very mild reaction for her. Io went up top. She got cut off by Asuka, who German suplexed her all the way to the mat. Charlotte went up top, and she hit both women with a crossbody block. Asuka then went for a German suplex on Charlotte. Io, though, performed a sunset flip on Asuka, and she tried to pin her. Now, I think Charlotte was supposed to break up the pin. She was late, and so Asuka kicked out anyway. Io put Asuka down, and then she executed an Asai moonsault to the floor that barely, I'm being generous when I say, that it barely connected. And the announcers had to call it out because how could you not? You have to say something. I mean, the move barely grazed her. So the announcers acknowledged it because it was so obvious. So then Charlotte goes up top and she's going to hit her moonsault. And she comes all the way down and it was only marginally better. She also barely did any damage, it looked like, to her opponents. Back in the ring, Asuka slipped underneath Charlotte, who was in the corner. She was trying to superplex Io. So Asuka gets underneath Charlotte in a powerbomb position with Io on Charlotte's shoulders, and she delivers an avalanche fallaway slam, which that at least makes sense. I was just talking about this on the SmackDown review last night. We had Charlotte and Asuka against Bayley and Io, and they did a Tower of Doom spot during the match where Io did the exact same thing that Asuka did here, only her partner was on top and her partner got suplexed and killed. So in that situation, it makes no sense. In this situation, it makes perfect sense because it's every woman for herself with the title on the line. See, this is a case where it actually makes sense. So avalanche fallaway slam, they all come crashing down. Asuka quickly covered Charlotte, only got a 2 count out of it. After that, Asuka took Charlotte down with an armbar. Charlotte got out of it. She turned it into a Boston Crab. She wasn't leaning back at all. She wasn't applying any pressure, so Asuka easily got out of it. Charlotte got a figure 4 leg lock applied. Io, though, broke it up with a Meteora to Charlotte, and a cover, only gets 2. Then we got a spot where Asuka got a leg lock applied on Charlotte. It's kind of like a sharpshooter, but Charlotte was just flat on the mat, and she's just wrenching back on the legs. Meanwhile, at the same time that this is happening, Io gets on top of Charlotte, and she applies a crossface. So we have dueling submissions to Charlotte going on here at the same time until Asuka let go. A little while later, Charlotte speared Asuka in half, covered her. She thought she had the title won. Asuka kicked out. And now here comes Bayley, the woman that Io said, I don't want your help. I don't need your help. Just stay in the back. Bayley doesn't listen. She comes down to the ring anyway, trying to revive Io and put her back in the ring. Io gets back up on the apron, then she stops. And she turns around and she looks at Bayley and she's trying to tell Bayley, I don't need you. I don't want you. And then when Io turns around, Charlotte boots her off the apron. Asuka, when Charlotte turns around, Asuka comes off the top with a top rope code breaker that barely connects. And again, the announcers have to acknowledge, I think they may have said, oh, I don't think she got all of it. This was a common recurring theme in this match, which is not to take away from the good work that we did see, but this happened at least 2 or 3 different times in this match where once it was Io, once or twice it was Charlotte, where one of the women would go for something and it either didn't connect and it looked terrible, and the announcers had to call it out, or it just barely grazed them. And again, the announcers felt the need to acknowledge the fact, oh, she didn't get all of it, or oh, it's a glancing blow. It happened several times here during this match. This was just one of those occasions. Too many instances, though, of that happening here. So we got Flair putting Asuka in the figure eight. Bayley jumps up on the apron to distract the referee, and Asuka was tapping out. She's tapping out on Charlotte's leg. Referee, of course, does not see it because he's distracted. Io, out of nowhere, nails Charlotte with her over the moonsault, shoves Asuka out of the way, and she scores the pin on Charlotte Flair to retain the Women's Championship. It was a good match. Took a little while for the crowd to really get going here. They were kind of silent through a good part of it. I'm not sure there were really any clear-cut baby faces in this match for them to get behind. Even Charlotte, right? Charlotte is supposed to be a baby face. She got a decent amount of boos, but Asuka has been kind of back and forth this year. I think people like her, but is she really fully a baby face? I don't know. Some people like Io, but Io is part of Damage Control, which is a heel faction. So the lines were kind of blurred here. I'm not really sure there was a clear-cut babyface for the people to really get behind in this match, which may have hurt it. But Charlotte takes the pin. It was very nice to see that Charlotte was the one to take the pin here, but there's always a caveat to these things. Charlotte got pinned, but the announcers made it very clear on commentary that she had the match won. And they showed on the replay that Asuka was tapping out. So had the referee been paying attention, Charlotte, they said, right now should be a 15-time women's champion. Charlotte got screwed. You know what that means. That means that Charlotte Flair is getting another shot at the WWE Women's Championship. I don't know if it's Crown Jewel. I don't know if it's Survivor Series. But she's getting another crack at the women's title. You can bet your ass on that. So, yes, she did eat the pin tonight, but if you think that's the end of Charlotte Flair challenging for the championship, then you don't know Charlotte Flair and her booking in WWE. She'll be cashing in that Charlotte in the Bank in a few weeks, and she may well win, right? She didn't win here. She's going to win it back. It's only a matter of when. So I wouldn't sell. If you're happy about that, I wouldn't celebrate too loudly. You may not be celebrating in a few weeks if you were happy to see her lose here on this show. Then we had a special tag team match here. For the very first time, John Cena in his first, I think this was his first televised match. Is this his first televised match since WrestleMania? I think it was. He's had some dark matches and some house show matches. He was at the Superstar Spectacle in India. But we had John Cena back in the ring, tagging with LA Knight to take on Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa. Pat McAfee got the surprise cameo appearance here. He was in the build. Not really shocking, given that they were in Indianapolis, but he was not announced for the show. So he was a surprise. Pat McAfee came out, played to the crowd, and of course, they all loved him there. He was wearing one of those custom NFL belts that they now make for all of the NFL teams, except the Jacksonville Jaguars. He got in the ring and he cut a promo before the match, putting over the Indy fans and saying that he believes that Indianapolis deserves a WrestleMania. Easy pop from the crowd. Everybody's cheering. Of course, Indianapolis already had a WrestleMania. Indianapolis had WrestleMania in 1992, which is actually one of my favorite WrestleManias. I enjoyed that show. Is that not enough for Indianapolis? You got your WrestleMania. What about that poor guy in the crowd with the Vancouver sign? Where's he been? I can't tell you how many shows I used to see that person. Bring WrestleMania to Vancouver. That person probably went to their grave and they never got WrestleMania in Vancouver. They're still waiting. You got people waiting in Minneapolis for WrestleMania to come to Minnesota. Look at these Indianapolis people. They want WrestleMania back in Indy. These greedy bastards. But he was pandering to the crowd just like John Cena was doing at Money in the Bank with the UK fans, saying, I think the UK deserves WrestleMania. Even though apparently there really is no plan to bring WrestleMania to the UK. It got a great reaction, just like tonight. Pat McAfee got a great reaction as well. So he gave a shout out to Stone Cold Steve Austin after asking the crowd if they thought that Indianapolis should host a WrestleMania. Give me a hell yeah. And they all said hell yeah. He said before he goes over and sits down next to the greatest of all time, Michael Cole, and then he insulted Corey Graves. Before he does that, he would like to introduce John Cena. And John Cena came down to the ring. The announcers were openly talking about how terrible, in their words, how terrible Paul Heyman looked and how much he had aged since we last saw Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. And I was going to mention it last night. I didn't say anything about it last night, but I noticed it watching SmackDown last night. And I have to go back and see because I don't remember his hair being all white even a few weeks ago. But it was noticeable that his hair now is basically all white. So basically either he has been dyeing it for years and just stopped, or he dyed his hair white for the purposes of whatever angle they're doing here. Basically the story they were telling on commentary was ever since Roman Reigns disappeared, Heyman's been under all this stress without his tribal chief around. So it's aging him. It's giving him gray hairs. So again, either he's been dyeing it and he stopped, or he's dyeing his hair white. Because it was very noticeable. And I guarantee you, I don't remember it being that white a month ago. So something's happened in the last couple of weeks. Loud LA Knight chants before the bell even rang. Not Cena chants, they were chanting for LA Knight. Cena started the match with Jimmy, and he got the better of him. Solo, though, was able to slow things down for a while. And at this point, the match slowed to a crawl. Because the next 10 to 12 minutes of the match was just John Cena selling, reaching for the tag and getting cut off, and selling and selling and selling. And calling spots. See, it wouldn't be a John Cena match if we didn't have spot calling here. So we had a little bit of the classic vintage John Cena here as far as that goes. But the Bloodline would constantly prevent him from making the tag to LA Knight. And they would taunt LA Knight on the apron. So this went on forever. I mean, Cena was calling spots so loud that Roman Reigns could hear them. And Cena didn't even have to pick up the phone and call him the way that Paul Heyman does. But I heard at one point, Cena was on the mat. And he wasn't that close to LA Knight, but he was kind of on that side of the ring. He was looking at LA Knight, and I could hear him say the word desperation. I couldn't pick up on the rest of what he was saying, but I definitely heard him shouting the word desperation. So I think what he was trying to do is, he was trying to communicate to LA Knight that he wanted him to show more urgency in trying to reach for the tag. Because at that point, Knight, he started putting the arm out, and he's really, extending the arm for the tag. And so I think that's what he was trying to do. I do think that LA Knight, to that point, because at that point I started paying attention to LA Knight on the apron. That because I was just bored by what was going on in the ring. So I started looking at LA Knight. And I actually felt the same way. I thought he could have shown more intensity on the apron. Yeah, you watch these tag team matches sometimes, and I sometimes find it more fascinating to pay attention to, like the baby face on the apron and how they're reacting. And are they stomping their feet on the steps? Are they pounding the turnbuckle? Like, what are they doing? There's that famous match, I think it was on a European tour years ago, where there's like fan cam video of The Undertaker. It was a tag match. And The Undertaker, I've never seen this before from The Undertaker, but he's on the apron. He's dying for the hot tag. He's dying because he's The Undertaker. But he picks up a bottle of water. He dumps it on his head. He's like dumping it on his head. And then he, like the Ultimate Warrior, he starts racing back and forth on the apron. And everyone's going nuts because they're like, what is going on here? This guy's on drugs or something. So I'm watching LA Knight, and he's just standing there. He's not really doing much. He's also not a tag team guy. So he's not used to being in these situations where A, he's in a tag team match, and B, dude, like, you're the top babyface now. It's not a position that he's used to being in. This is all new to him. So he's getting used to this. So I do think he could have shown a little more intensity out there. But Cena finally dropped Jimmy with an attitude adjustment. And he had an opening. He crawled towards his corner. Solo, though, tagged in. And he ran over to knock Knight off the apron. And almost 15 minutes into this match, LA Knight finally makes the hot tag. And it was a hot tag. Everybody went crazy when he finally tagged in. That was the whole point of doing it this way. Knight worked over Jimmy. He knocked Solo off the apron. He started putting the boots to Jimmy in the corner. Sikoa ran in. He ate a DDT, but Jimmy cut off Knight with a super kick, and he covered him for a near fall. Jimmy went up top for a splash, but he landed on his feet when Knight rolled out of the way. And Knight slammed Jimmy. He dropped the elbow on him. Solo came in, hit a Samoan drop on LA Knight. Cena climbed to the top rope, and we got a giant cross body block off the top rope. A high-flying aerial move from John Cena here at 45 years old. And he lands the crossbody, and now everybody is down. Sikoa's down, Jimmy's down, Knight is down, Cena's down. Knight got sent to the floor by Solo. Cena hoisted Solo up for an AA, but Jimmy super kicked him, and down he went. Sikoa charged at Cena, who pulled the top rope down. That sent Solo crashing to the floor. And then LA Knight did his running vertical leap to the top rope. He stuck the landing, and he superplexed Jimmy. I always hold my breath on that move. That vertical leap that he does, because he's messed it up a few times. Lately, he's been nailing it. But it's a hard thing to do. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. So I kind of just, every time he does it, I'm like, I hope he, don't fall. This is a big spot for him, too. The last thing he wants to do is try to jump up there and fall off the freaking ropes. So Cena hits Jimmy with a 5-knuckle shuffle. Knight follows up with the blunt force trauma, and he pins Jimmy to win the match. So much for that alliance between the Judgment Day and the Bloodline. 24 hours ago, shaking hands. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. We both have big matches tomorrow night at Fastlane. We didn't see the Judgment Day come out during the Bloodline match. We didn't see the Bloodline come out during the Judgment Day match. They all kept to themselves, and it did not play a role in tonight's show at all. Jimmy losing, though, is always the likely outcome that made the most sense, especially with the knowledge that Roman Reigns is coming back on SmackDown this Friday. Once I knew that Roman Reigns was coming back on the 13th, I said, okay, that's the first show coming out of Fastlane. Jimmy's going to lose. Jimmy's going to lose, and Roman is going to come to SmackDown on Friday, and he is not going to be happy. Because Jimmy is the one who's going to be on the hot seat for losing the match for his team, and that's exactly the way that it played out here. Jimmy took the losing fall. Heyman was on his phone when the match was over. He was on his phone to Roman Reigns. As soon as this ended, he was on speakerphone, no less. In a building with 13,000, they had just shy of 13,000 screaming people in this building. He's on speakerphone talking to Roman Reigns. I love it. You know what this was? I'll give you the perfect description for what this match was. This match was a house show match. That's all this was. This was exactly the match that you would see at a house show, where the babyface, in this case John Cena, they get the heat on him for an extended period of time. His partner is on the apron just waiting and just dying for the hot tag, and eventually he gets it, and the babyfaces win, and everybody goes home happy. This was a very basic match. There was nothing special about this match. I'll call it a house show match, call it a TV match. That's what this match was. And you know what? The people in the building, they loved it because they got to see John Cena. They know he's only back for a limited time. They got to see LA Knight, he's the hot star right now in this company. And they got to see the two of them win and be tag team partners together. So the crowd was satisfied with what they got here. And for LA Knight, this was a big spot for him. He came through just fine. This is how you use someone like John Cena to help give the rub to the next big star. He had that match with Austin Theory at WrestleMania. He did the job for Austin Theory. It was not a good match, and they didn't follow up on it. It was a complete waste of whatever Cena has left to give. You only have him for a finite period of time. Make the most of it. That's what they've been doing with him and LA Knight, just associating the two of them together. Just the two of them sharing a ring together does wonders for LA Knight. Just the visual of him standing in the ring with John Cena, and you have an entire building of people. They're not cheering for Cena. They're not chanting. I mean, they're cheering for him, but they're not chanting his name. They're chanting LA Knight's name. That is the proper way to use somebody like John Cena to give the rub to somebody else. Unlike what they did earlier this year, where he just tore that kid down in that promo on Raw leading up to WrestleMania. And then they went out there and had the kind of match that they had. And then they did nothing with Austin Theory for months. So this was a great spot for LA Knight to be in, and long may it continue. Backstage, Damian Priest was selling the knee injury. Bálor told him, look, tonight is not the night to cash in Money in the Bank because you're hurt. Priest didn't want to hear it. He was upset. We lost our tag team titles. I'm not leaving here empty-handed tonight without any gold. And he was limping, and he was bound and determined to cash in his Money in the Bank. Rhea Ripley stopped him. And Rhea said, you're not in any condition to do this, and you know it. Now hand over the briefcase. And he stared at her, and he handed over the Money in the Bank briefcase. In case you couldn't tell from last night's show who the real leader of the Judgment Day is. And I know they always say that we have no leader. It's bullshit. In case you couldn't tell last night, Rhea says something, and they do it. If Rhea says jump, they say how high. If Rhea says you're going to do this, they don't talk back to her, right? He hands the briefcase over to her. She's the keeper now of the briefcase. He sits back down. He's got an ice pack on his knee. I thought, okay, maybe they're trying to swerve us here. Maybe they want us to think that he's hurt, but he's not that hurt, and he'll come out later and cash in anyway. But no. That was the last time we saw Damian Priest for the rest of the night. And I guess that wouldn't have made too much sense anyway, because part of the reason they lost in the opener was because Priest obviously had an injury. And so if he was feigning an injury, that wouldn't really make sense because it factored into why they lost the tag team titles. So no cash in. No cash in tonight for the people hoping for one or expecting at least the attempt. It did not happen because Rhea Ripley said no. And Damian Priest said, okay. Now, this next segment I was not expecting. This caught me off guard, and I'll tell you why here. But I want to throw a photo up here for you on the screen. That in the middle there with the title over his shoulder is Shane McMahon's son, one of his sons, Declan McMahon, in the front row with a bunch of his teammates from the Indiana Hoosiers. And he's holding a spinner version of a Hoosiers belt. You can't tell here, but it was spinning. Shane McMahon's son is in college. I am officially old. I'm watching this and I'm going, holy crap, when the hell did this happen? There it is. Declan McMahon. It's only a matter of time. That's how this works, right? They do football, and then when they're bored of it or they blow out their knee and they can't play anymore, he's going to be wrestling. I give it 3 years. I give it 3 to 5 years. Declan McMahon is going to be at the Performance Center. He's going to be training. Will they let him keep his name? That's what I want to know. Will they let Declan McMahon keep his name? That doesn't even sound like a real name. That sounds like the name they would give somebody at the Performance Center. But will they allow him to keep his name? I wonder. It's only a matter of time. You don't think we're not going to get more McMahons in the ring? Really? You people actually believe, oh, no more McMahons? Really? You're in for a rude awakening if you don't. He's got 3 sons, right? Shane does. 3 of them. You don't think one of them at least is not going to end up in the ring as a champion at some point years from now? You people haven't been paying attention. But yeah, I feel old. For God's sake, Shane McMahon has a kid in college. When the hell did that happen? Let's talk about this main event. Main event was last man standing for the World Heavyweight Championship. Seth Rollins defending against Shinsuke Nakamura. This was their second meeting. Of course, they had their first match at Payback. Rollins won that match. I don't know why people were expecting this to be any different. I am actually the most amazing thing tonight, or the thing that maybe surprised me the most, was actually nothing to do with any of the results on this show and everything to do with the people I saw on social media and even in this chat who were upset that Shinsuke Nakamura did not walk away the World Heavyweight Champion, that they were upset, they were surprised, they were disappointed. Why would you think that Shinsuke Nakamura was going to win the World Heavyweight title? How long has he been in this company for? All the start and stop pushes, the initial push he got, he couldn't beat Jinder Mahal. All of a sudden, you think Shinsuke Nakamura is going to walk out with the World Heavyweight Championship? People are out of your minds. No pinfalls, no submissions, no countouts, no disqualifications. When one man cannot respond to the count of 10, the other man wins. Very simple. Rollins pulled out a bunch of plunder early from under the ring, including chairs that he threw into the ring. He got a big pop for pulling out a table. I am not exaggerating when I tell you that the pop he got for pulling that table out, aside from the finish, was the biggest pop I think that they probably got for anything in the entire match. And the table always gets a cheap pop, but the fans were very, very quiet for large stretches of this big main event match, like alarmingly so. But Nakamura pulled out a pair of nunchucks, and he went to work on Rollins, and then he placed a trash can over Seth's head, and he beat on it with a kendo stick. Every time Nakamura found himself in trouble, he would go right for the bad back. They showed Rollins had the kinesio tape on his lower back. That was the story coming into this match. He is going to beat down this man so badly that he cannot get back up to his feet to respond to the 10 count, and that is how he's going to win the World Heavyweight title. They have been crafting this story since before Payback. Rollins countered out of an inverted exploder attempt, and he grabbed a kendo stick. He started unloading on Nakamura with it. Then he hit him with that same trash can that was on his head before. Rollins hit a suicide dive to the floor. Then he put Shinsuke back in the ring. Goes up to the top rope, and he hits a frog splash. No pins, though. But he hits a frog splash. Referee begins the count. Got up to an 8 count before Nakamura got back to his feet. Nakamura hit a backstabber and then a sliding knee to the face. And then he grabbed the table and he placed it upright in the corner. And then he came charging in for the Kinshasa. Rollins, though, who was up against the table, he moved out of the way. And Nakamura went knee first into the table, which partially broke. It didn't really break completely in half, but you could see where it broke right in the middle. Rollins then hit the stomp. Nakamura, though, was able to break the count before 10. And again, you would think that the crowd would be really up here at this point for this main event, and they were noticeably silent until Rollins went outside and he dragged a ladder out from under the ring. And then everybody cheered, right? So the biggest pops so far in the match were for the table and for the ladder, if you're keeping score. He drove it into Nakamura's shoulder on the outside, and then he took the ladder and he set the ladder up right next to the announce desk. The announcers got very nervous. Rollins laid half of Nakamura's body, so he was standing there and then his upper body was just laying across the announce desk. And Rollins went and he climbed the ladder. He started to make his ascent. But before Seth could come flying off, Nakamura just casually got up and walked away. So Rollins had to climb back down, and he went back after him. So we're going to come back to that ladder later, okay? Don't forget about that. They fought to the opposite side of the ring, outside, and Rollins dumped him over the barricade into the crowd. Rollins then grabbed a chair, and he went out after him into the crowd. And they ended up wrestling over by next to the stage. So they're still in the crowd, but they're kind of next to where the staging area is. And they go up like a small flight of stairs. So, you know, like this section of the crowd is slightly elevated. So now they're fighting in the crowd over there. And Nakamura knocks Rollins off. This was the funniest part of the entire match. So he knocks Rollins off. I don't want to make it sound like they were up on the concourse and he fell 20 feet. he fell 2 feet, maybe 3. Maybe not even. What am I even saying? 3 feet, maybe. And he bounces. Now, they tried to shoot this, I think, in a way where you see Rollins go backwards, but, like, they keep a tight shot because they don't want you to see that he didn't exactly fall a great distance. The problem is that if you look in the corner of the screen, he bounced. It was like he was in a bouncy castle. You know, like it was having like a kid's birthday party or something, right? Everybody loves the bouncy castle. I used to go to parties with, like, you know, little cousins and stuff. There'd be like a big family gathering in the backyard, and they'd rent out one of those big things, and everybody would go inside. I had more fun than anybody else. I had these little kids around me. I'm fucking pushing them out of the way and shit. Like, everybody loves a bouncy castle. So Seth bounces off of either a mattress or a crash pad. If it was a crash pad, it was the bounciest crash pad I've ever seen. It kind of looked fun. This guy, meanwhile, had to sell it like he had a broken back. So that's what I thought was hilarious about the whole thing. Oh, it was so great. He bounced like a ball. I love it. I love it. I remember, it takes me back to when MJF threw Chris Jericho off the top of the Blood and Guts cage. And they got that terrible camera angle, which clearly showed Jericho falling through what looked like cardboard. Right? Now, I don't want the guy to fall and plummet to his death, but there's a good way to shoot and a bad way to shoot. You don't want to kill the illusion by showing us, you know, the actual landing if you think that when the person lands, it's going to look like crap. That's kind of what it reminded me of. But anyway, back to ringside. Nakamura backdropped Rollins on the exposed concrete, which was exposed after the mats had been pulled up at the very beginning of the match. Some of the mats outside had gotten pulled up. Nakamura put Rollins back inside. He set up for the Kinshasa, but he ate a super kick coming in, and then Rollins hit a pedigree. And it was still very quiet in the arena, although the fans, they would count along with the referee when he would start counting. And Nakamura barely made it back to his feet by a 9 count. They ended up back outside in front of the announcers. Rollins grabbed another table, but with his bad back, he could not even lift the table. Could not even lift the table up to slide it into the ring. Nakamura placed Rollins on top of the table instead. He went back inside. He came flying off the middle rope with double knees, and he put Rollins through the table with the double knees. That got a good reaction. Rollins somehow was able to beat the count. He got control back, and again, he laid half of Nakamura's body across the announce desk. He starts climbing that ladder that he had set up earlier on. Nakamura gets up, and he begins to scale the ladder on the other side. So he climbs up. He spits red mist into Seth's eyes, so it looked like Seth's face was covered in blood. This was the second misting spot on the same show. This time it was the red mist. I believe the red mist burns the eyes, right? It's not the one that puts you to sleep. Is that the blue? The blue or the green? I don't remember. But the red mist is what, like, burns your eyes. So he mists him, and then he pushes Rollins backwards, and Seth took what looked like a pretty safe bump, didn't have very far to fall, through the announce desk, which broke. And when all hope looked lost, it looked like this is going to be the end of Seth Rollins' reign as the World Heavyweight Champion. Somehow he found a way to get back up by 9.5. Nakamura puts him back in the ring, and he delivered a backbreaker through a chair. Yes, there are different, for the people who don't know, there are different grades of mist. We've been through this before. Black mist, red mist, blue mist, green mist. I believe there's yellow mist, which is not like yellow snow. But there are different levels to this. And each mist is supposed to have a different, what yellow, what are you asking me for? What does yellow do? Go look it up. I don't remember all the different mists. What am I, an expert in Asian mist? What are you asking me for? Anyway. It's not important right now. He puts him through a chair with a backbreaker. That's important. This guy has a bad back, and he just got put through a chair with a backbreaker. And then he hits a Kinshasa to Rollins, who was in the corner up against that partially broken table. So now he gets a Kinshasa, and that puts Rollins through the rest of the table. Now the table is fully broken. Michael Cole tells us, that's it. That's it. That's the end of the match. And as soon as he said that, you knew that's not the end of the match. Thanks, Michael. And sure enough, Rollins rolled out of the ring at 9 and landed on his feet. See, I actually thought that was a very clever way for him to keep his title. All he did, he had no energy. He couldn't stand up on his own 2 feet. He just rolled to the outside and landed on his feet, and he was standing up. So that was enough to break the count. Nakamura knocked him into the timekeeper's area, and again, they ended up in the crowd. Rollins gave Nakamura a pedigree on a small, the way I would describe it is like a small platform. At first, I thought it was just like a long table, because it had like a black tarp, what looked like a black tarp over it. I'll call it a platform. But it wasn't very high. And to give you the perspective of how high it was, there just so happened to be 2 tables that were set up right next to this platform. And so the height of the tables was the exact same height of this so-called platform. So that's what you're dealing with here. Again, they're not coming from a great height or anything like that. But on this platform, he gives him a pedigree, and then he gives Nakamura a stomp. And when that didn't work, he delivered a Falcon Arrow from the platform through the 2 tables, conveniently placed right next to him. He puts Nakamura through the tables. Both men are down. The referee begins to count. And around 8 or 9, Rollins made it back to his feet. I think it was around the 8 count. Nakamura got to his feet, but he immediately collapsed. And Rollins was up on his feet. And so Seth Rollins retains the World Heavyweight Championship in this last man standing match. How Nakamura's back gave up on him before Seth's gave up on him, I don't know. But that was the story they opted to tell. I actually thought it was a pretty underwhelming ending to the match. Just my opinion. But I thought it was a good match overall. I enjoyed the match overall. They told a good story with the bad back. I mean, that's what the whole last man standing stipulation was designed for. I just thought the finish was just a little flat for me. I was not a huge fan of what they did there. But there was no cash-in attempt for the people waiting and expecting there to be something at the end of the show. There was nothing. It was played very straightforward. Babyface wins. He retains his title. He somehow finds a way to survive. And that was it. And that's how they went off the air. They needed someone. Here's the post-mortem on Shinsuke Nakamura to all the people who were disappointed that he did not win the world title and he just went in there and lost back-to-back matches against Seth Rollins. You really have nothing to be upset about. I know some people are a fan of Shinsuke Nakamura. They were hopeful that this would lead to some reinvigorated push for him or his character. The style of promos they've had him doing on TV with the, not animations, but, you know, they've, the way that they have produced these vignettes and then adding in the subtitles, I think, has been pitch perfect. And honestly, I think that's the way to go in the future when it comes to whatever program Nakamura is going to have next. So I thought that all that stuff was well done. And we got to see a different side of him as a heel that we haven't seen in a very long time. But the reality is, this was never designed for Shinsuke Nakamura to be the World Heavyweight Champion. Never. He was never going to be the World Heavyweight Champion. This was very simple. They needed somebody they could trust. They needed a talent that they could put in there with him as a body for these 2 pay-per-views to bridge the gap between SummerSlam and Survivor Series. And who is that going to be? They decided, Triple H did, that it's going to be Shinsuke Nakamura. And we're going to try to heat him up a little bit on TV. And we'll do these slick vignettes with the subtitles and everything. And we'll manufacture this back injury. Because now I look back on it, and that, you know, we talked about it on Logan Paul's podcast months ago about the bad back. Maybe he is having back issues legitimately, but it's pretty clear now that the reason that he told that story about him having fractures in his lower back, I'm guessing, was because they knew they were about to tell this story. And that was the kickoff to it. So they either manufactured it or they embellished the severity of the injury, and that was the story they chose to tell. It was to build Seth Rollins up. Here's this big babyface who has to overcome adversity to win, you know, to hold on to his World Heavyweight Championship. Nakamura was just the person who, he was the talent they chose to put in there in the ring with him. And he gave him a couple of good matches, and now his time has come and gone. There's nothing to be upset about. I don't know why some people are very surprised and shocked by the outcome of this match tonight. Don't be. He was never going to go over here. He was never going to win the World Heavyweight title. He was a warm body in the ring. That's it. And honestly, if it hasn't happened by now, I don't know why people are still clinging to this hope that he's going to get that big World Heavyweight Championship run. I don't see it. He did his job. And now it's time to move on to the next person, whoever that next person is going to be. And Damian Priest still has not cashed in his Money in the Bank. So they still have that tease, right? That's still looming and lording over Seth Rollins' head. It could be Drew McIntyre. It could very well be that Drew McIntyre is groomed next, for the World Heavyweight title run with Rollins. It looked like we were heading in the direction of Cody and Drew, and maybe we still are. So I don't know if Cody winning the tag team titles does anything to change those plans. But overall, it was a good show. Probably the shortest show they've done all year. Not one of their strongest ones in a year where they've had some really great pay-per-views. This will go down as a good show. But I didn't see it as nothing more than that. And even though we had a tag team title change on the show, that was newsworthy. Carlito is back, so that's newsworthy. Jade was there, but she didn't really do anything. But I still feel like if you didn't see this show, even with the tag team title change, you didn't really miss all that much. But it was an enjoyable way, I thought, to spend 3 hours. I don't really have any complaints as far as that goes. And there you go. I mean, look, I'm looking at this Twitter. I'm actually kind of surprised, to be honest. I thought that thumbs up would be a little bit higher. But so far, these are the results. 56% thumbs up, 29% thumbs in the middle, and 14% thumbs down. You know what? I guess that's not that surprising that there would be more in the way of thumbs in the middle for this show. But that's, again, pretty much in line with what I was just saying. It's a good show, but not a great show. There's been a lot of really strong shows this year. This is not going to crack the top 5, when this year is over. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not every show has to be a home run. But yeah, Issa is with us. Shout out to NYC Demon Diva. I agree with you. I said that earlier too. Booking Carlito to come out in the middle of the match like that. I know what they were going for. They were going for the music and the pop. It might have worked better if he had his original music. But I agree. It was a very awkward way of bringing him out while his partners are having the shit beaten out of him. It was a very odd booking choice. But they tried. I know what they were going for. They tried. I don't really think it worked quite as well as I would have hoped. But he got the reaction that I guess they were hoping for, so what do I know? Base Beerus kicking us off here with the Super Chats. Yeah, Carlito's music. I mean, my God, I can't be alone in thinking that it is just generic garbage. His theme song before, besides the fact that it was just familiar, right? From the opening Apple spit, like you would hear it and you would instantly recognize it. It had a certain charm to it. It had a certain personality to it. It fits him. And to go ahead and change it, again, they've changed over a lot of old music for various reasons, but it's garbage. I'm sorry. It's garbage. Base Beer says referees should have worn checkered shirts for Fastlane. That's a very good observation. Next ad for Pizza Hut. Out pizza everyone, says Christian Cage. Base Beerus, God of Seduction, also says, has anyone ever been in more triple threat matches than Charlotte Flair? She's always finding a way to compete for a belt. I don't know, but she's probably pretty high up on the list. I mean, that's how she got into the WrestleMania main event. Wormed her way in there, right? Against Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. Hey, when she won the World Championship at SummerSlam and she stole the title from Becky Lynch, that was a triple threat. Right? It should have been Becky and Carmella. Instead, it was Becky, Charlotte, and Carmella. WrestleMania 35, it should have been Becky and Ronda. It was Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda. This show should have been a rematch between Io and Asuka. Instead, we get Io, Asuka, and Charlotte. I think you're onto something here. I think you may be right. I think you may be right. Lady Fire Panda with the 20 bucks. Dream match. Dirty Dom against Brock Lesnar in a 1-hour Iron Man Hell in a Cell match. Well, maybe one of these days we'll book it and be the booker. It's possible. Although we're lagging right now in likes. What do we need? 70 more? Are we 70 behind the goal? It's not going to work. Very disappointing. Very disappointing. I thought this team, I thought this crew here could get the job done. You're letting me down. You are letting me down. Base Beer says bring back Carlito and Shayna's theme songs. Yeah, they changed the Shayna's music too. Jessica Herman, $5 belated birthday gift. Thank you for all that you do. Your insights and reviews are something that helps get me through my work weeks. Thank you very much, Jessica. I am glad the show can be of help to you. Thank you for the belated birthday gift. Bobby's World 2110 really wanted to stay up for the stream, but not going to make it. Good show tonight. Much love to you in the chat. I will see you guys next time. Thank you, Bobby. We'll be here live again on Monday night. God of Seduction, beverages under the ring. Hornswoggle still there? They always have beverages under the ring. They usually have extra bottles of water, and sometimes they have soda. Usually it's for the announcers. Warren, hey Solomonster, first time dono, first pay-per-view too. That crowd was ecstatic. Have a good night, sir. They were trying to get that WrestleMania, right? After what Pat McAfee said. They want to get WrestleMania back. Thank you, Warren. Mr. 201, happy belated birthday. Thank you very much. Brian H. DeGreenboy with the 10 bucks. What's up, Solomonster? I missed last night's stream, so I wanted to wish you a happy birthday. Hope you had a great day, and here is to many more. I did have a good day, and then we capped it off with a fun stream last night. Had a little AMA there at the end, too. Near, I hope you are doing well. I hope you are staying safe. You and the family. Thank you very much. Booba, thank you for the birthday love. What do you think?
Thank you, and SHOOSH, and
it's Jazz.
And SHOOSH. Thank you, and SHOOSH, and thank you, and SHOOSH.
Thank you, Jazz. What do you think the most watched pay-per-view is on Peacock? I think maybe the 1992 Royal Rumble. What do you think? I will guarantee you that it is not the 1992 Royal Rumble. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of the classic content gets a whole lot of love from people, which is why they don't really do much of a job in terms of publicizing it. Then again, I mean, they got their money from Peacock, so that's really up to Peacock more than WWE to promote that stuff. Most watched or viewed pay-per-view on Peacock is probably this year's WrestleMania. A lot of the current shows this year have, according to them anyway, have set records for viewership on Peacock. It's probably this year's WrestleMania. Paul Hamilton, again, thank you for that $100 super chat from earlier. Very, very kind of you, sir. Anis, at this point, we should just get Seth versus Roman, winner take all, and get it over with. So Addis is just completely giving up. Let's give Roman all the belts. Yes, but then what is Gunther going to fight for when he loses the Intercontinental title? They're not going to do Roman and Gunther. Gunther needs something to fight for. He needs something to win at WrestleMania next year. Can't just give it to Roman. Michael Cuomo, thank you. Michael's been a member for 10 months. We had Fire Panda in here last night gifting 20 memberships, so I will shout her out again for that. Orhan, why wasn't HBK a big draw despite being so talented? Didn't have the mainstream appeal that a Hulk Hogan or a Stone Cold had. I guess the mainstream audience just didn't get Shawn Michaels prancing around in his underwear with his navel pierced and walking around with little hearts on his tights and the earring and going into the crowd and pulling his pants down and mooning the audience and doing all the things that he did back then. I mean, I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why, you know, some of the old school wrestling fans were not into that. I don't know. I guess that wasn't their thing. Anderson Blitz, once again, WWE is on a roll with pay-per-views in 2023. Zachariah with the $50. Thank you, sir. Happy birthday. My Oklahoma Sooners handled Texas today, and we got a killer PLE. I had low expectations, but shame we did not get this version of Shinsuke when he feuded with AJ. What is the next chapter of this ongoing story called WWE? I mean, that's kind of a loaded question. What's the next chapter of WWE? Well, we're heading into Survivor Series. So we'll find out probably on Friday whether or not we're getting a War Games match. And Cody still has to finish his story. This is not the title that finishes the story. The titles he won tonight, that's just another step on his path to finishing the story. Now it gets him on SmackDown. Now he can go face-to-face with the Tribal Chief. We still don't know who is going to be drafted as trade compensation to SmackDown. I still say it's going to be Cody. But it doesn't matter anymore because Cody can be on SmackDown now. He's tag team champion. See, now it doesn't matter. God of Seduction, Jade Cargill at Fastlane. Yes, I see what you did. That's very clever. That is very clever. Base Beerus, thank you very much. And the Real CS with the $4.99. I give Fastlane 7 out of 10. The six-man tag should have been a TV match. And I personally did not enjoy the women's match. Too many botches for my liking. So saith the Real CS02. And Boots, thank you, Boots. Declan McMahon ends Roman's reign. You know what? They may keep the belts on him long enough for that to happen. I sure hope not. Although don't let Issa hear me say that. She might hate my guts. We might not see her again if she hears me talking about Roman like that. Sitka Hans Hansen. I hope I said that right. Do you think wrestler contract terms being public knowledge would increase interest in business? Free agency in the major sports is huge. Buy or sell? I think with online fans, it might be interesting. They would find it interesting. I honestly don't think the mainstream audience would care much. I don't really think it would do anything to enhance viewership or anything like that. I think you and I might find that stuff interesting. I would. I do a podcast. I would love to talk about it. But I don't think so. I don't think it would make much of a difference, honestly. Dan Richards, thank you, Dan. Thank you for the $3. I've never seen Declan throw a punch, but I guarantee it is better than Shane's. Let's hope. Holy shit. We're having a party here on the street. We're Barry Horowitz at. Where is he? Wow. Well, wow. You got me there. Wow. You got me there. What was that? Was that Lewis? Wow. That was Lewis. Lewis just dropped a $500 super chat. $500 bomb on this, which I believe is, I think that's the record, actually. I think that's the maximum that they even allow. Wow. Happy belated birthday. Other than Bret Hart, if you could have a wrestler... He's asking a question. I'm still sitting here in shock from what I just saw here. It's better than anything I saw on the pay-per-view tonight. Other than Bret Hart, if you could have a wrestler co-host talking about wrestling, who would it be? And are you going to be doing any more interviews? The Bob Holly and DDP ones are my favorites of yours. I'm sure I will in the future. You know, those were special opportunities that came about. The DDP, I did DDP interviews twice. And the first one is still one of the favorite ones I've ever done, just because we ended up talking about things that were not even really planned. And he was telling Randy Savage stories, and he was very giving of his time when he didn't have to be, and was not feeling well at that particular time. If you listen to the beginning of the interview, you can hear it in his voice, although I think it got better as the interview went on. He had like bronchitis or something. Anyway, to answer your question, yes, I'm sure I will do more at some point. Although right now there are none planned at this particular moment. But to answer your, I'm still stunned as I sit here. But to answer your first question, as far as a wrestler co-host to talk wrestling, yeah, I don't know. There are some wrestlers who are, you know, I'll hear in interviews occasionally, and just listening to them talk, you know, about the business. And it could be an older school guy. I've heard Ricky Steamboat give interviews where he's talking about his philosophy on the wrestling business. And yeah, he just did an interview recently talking about his whole angle with Ricky Starks and why they did what they did. And you know, he didn't like the idea that Tony Khan had come up with for it, so he came up with his own way of putting the shine on Ricky and making him look good and putting him over. But there are certain people like that when I listen to them in interviews. They look at things so differently that I learn things by listening to them. So whoever it is, I would love to chat with somebody who just has a different perspective on the wrestling business and can see things, yeah, as a performer, as opposed to a fan or as somebody who has been around for decades. They see things differently than you and I would, right? And they may pick up on little things. And you see some of this even with Stevie Richards on his YouTube channel. Stevie Richards has a very popular YouTube channel where he will dissect certain wrestling, you know, botches, or he's done videos on Bret Hart, you know, certain moves people would do. You know, how they were executed so well and what goes into it, and he'll slow it down and he'll show you the mechanics of it. That's the sort of thing that I would love to just sit and kind of listen to somebody talking about. So, without spitting out specific names, because I'll be honest with you, right now I am just blown away by your super chat. But that's the sort of thing I think that would be very cool. I think everybody would learn from something like that. But Lewis, man, I can't thank you enough for that. That's amazing. Thank you very much. Wow. Where did I leave off here? Yes, shout out to Maven as well. Maven also has a very good YouTube channel. Maven's YouTube channel has his YouTube channel has taken off in a very short period of time. People are really digging his videos, so he's got it figured out. Dan Richards, though, says, I've never seen Declan throw a punch, but I guarantee it is better than Shane's. Let's hope he has his mom's quads. Male McMahons have papier-mâché quads. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Or Wizzle, greetings. What do you think about Cody and Jay being tag champs, and how does it affect the road to WrestleMania 4? I don't think it affects the road to WrestleMania 40 as far as changing anything. I just think it's another chapter in the story that they're telling. I know some people might be thinking that this is going to end up being some sort of betrayal. And Jay's going to turn on him and it's part of some bloodline plot. That's not what's going on here. I just think it's another step in the process, you know, and eventually we will have Cody on SmackDown. When he is officially on SmackDown and we get closer to WrestleMania season, he doesn't necessarily have to win the Royal Rumble. They will begin to set up the rematch between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns for WrestleMania 40. That is still the story they are going to tell. Chris AXC, how does AJ Styles factor into this bloodline story, if at all? And when is the last time Kenny Omega felt as unimportant as he does now? Kenny Omega felt pretty unimportant there for a while when he first came back and was doing nothing but trio stuff. So I'm just happy we actually have him back doing some singles matches now. There are other periods where he has felt less important than now. But I agree, he doesn't feel as important as he used to. As far as AJ Styles, I still think he's going to come back and he's going to want revenge, and it's going to be AJ and Roman in Saudi Arabia for the title. I'm going to stick to that. I think that that is going to likely be the match. And if they're going to do Roman and LA Knight, don't do it at Crown Jewel. You put that off for later on. I think AJ's going to get a title shot. The new one says, don't forget Stephanie's daughters. That's right. Stephanie also has some daughters. I don't know if they're into wrestling or if if they're training already. How old is their oldest daughter? They have 3 of them, right? It's funny how that worked out. Shane had 3 sons, right? The son had 3 sons. The daughter had 3 daughters. But I don't know if any of them are actually actively training at the moment. Orhan, why do you think RKO doesn't have any classic matches? RKO? Randy Orton? Randy Orton has plenty of great matches in his career. Go watch the SummerSlam match he had with Christian. It's a classic to me. Go watch the Backlash match he had early in his career with Mick Foley. That's not a classic? For the Intercontinental title, the hardcore match. Jazz Jackrabbit with the $13. Happy birthday. Thank you for the years of entertainment covering the best and worst in wrestling. The work you've done is appreciated. I will be listening to you till the day you hang up your boots. Got any boots on right now, but thank you, Jazz. Booba, coffee or tea? What is in the cup? Thank you for all that you do. It's a mystery. I don't tell what's in the cup. Sometimes you can tell based on how I am by the later hours of the stream, and sometimes you can't. I don't tell people what's in the mug. I leave it to their imagination. Hey JR, thank you for the 5. Happy birthday. Go do the Solomonster mash to celebrate. Solomonster is going to be mashing right into his bed when we're done here. Devin from NJ, how was the Chinese last? Oh, the Chinese was perfect. Perfect. Thank you for asking. Lewis, again, and I hope it's Lewis and not Louis, so I apologize if it's not. But Lewis, thank you very, 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 very much for that. That's too kind of you. Thank you for the 500. I'm going to take a screenshot and we'll kind of pin it up in the corner over there. Dr. Bropio, Cody finished the tag team chapter of his story. Okay, there you go. There you go. The tag team chapter has been completed. Now we got to get on to the real chapter. Angel Silva, if you're looking for a good modern horror thriller, I definitely recommend Talk to Me. It was really good. Also, thoughts on Reanimator. I have not seen Reanimator. But I do have to thank whoever it was in the chat last night who told me that there is a season 4 of Creepshow. I did look it up, and it starts this Friday. I guess what they're doing is they're going to be dumping all 6 episodes. I think, well, I think what they're doing is maybe on AMC Plus. I forgot how it's going to work, but it's on Shudder, but it's also on AMC, and on one of them, they're going to air it weekly. But on one of them, they're dumping all 6 episodes. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work. All I know is I am looking forward to watching season 4. And, funny enough, didn't realize it until I went and watched the trailer. I mentioned his name. I think during one of the questions that you asked me last night, I mentioned Tom Atkins, who was actually in the original Creepshow movie, but also was in Halloween 3. Tom Atkins is in season 4 of Creepshow. He's in the trailer. I don't know if he's playing the father, the same character he did in the original Creepshow, but that is very cool to see him in that. Darth Panic for the Mist. Red causes burning. Yes, so what was that like? It's like herpes. Black blinds you. Blue puts you to sleep. So that's like raw. See, that doesn't make sense. Red is raw. Red should put you to sleep. Blue puts you to sleep. Yellow paralyzes you. Green obscures vision and pain. I see. Brandon Vasquez, how would you book a Damian Priest cash-in? I mean, it would have made sense for him to cash in tonight. I would have booked him to come out and cash in and win the championship. Would have made the Judgment Day story a little more interesting, right? Having Finn Bálor jealous that Damian Priest is the World Heavyweight Champion. But how would I book a cash-in? I don't even know. He'll probably end up cashing in and losing. Maybe that's how they boot him out of the Judgment Day. Cashes in, loses, and they all kick him out. Arabian Night, why would they change Carlito's music? I guess they really hate Jim Johnston. WWE cheaps out on music compared to AEW. I don't get it. I don't know who did the original Carlito theme. I'm sure Jim Johnston probably did. It could be some sort of rights issue. You know, they've really phased out the Jim Johnston stuff. And there are people in that company that do not like it. That's part of the reason why he ended up leaving. There were definitely people there who, for whatever reason, they had it in for him. So it could be as simple as that. But I agree. Some things just should not be changed. Or at least in this situation, it's kind of like Backlash. If he's going to make a big cameo and you want people to identify who it is right away, you keep the music, at least initially. Let him keep the music. If you want to phase in new music, fine. But, it really... And maybe I'm in the minority because, again, the people in the crowd cheered for him. It's not like they were dead silent, but, like, it really kills the vibe for me when they do stuff like that. And I have to listen to some crappy, generic... it's like the sort of thing where they would dub over the good music because of rights issues on Peacock, and they'll dub it over with some generic garbage. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Boney says, if you're a women's champion in any company, Charlotte theme must sound Jaws' theme. Must sound Jaws' theme? Do you think she ranks high or low on the reign of terrors in wrestling? Compared to some of the reigns of terror, she ranks pretty low for me. And D gives, is AEW in trouble with these empty seats? Well, they are definitely having attendance issues here in this country. There's no doubt about it. And any AEW fan who says otherwise is just being delusional. Some AEW fans, when you mention attendance, they get very defensive. Very defensive. But the fact is, they are struggling in a lot of places to sell tickets. Not every show. There are some shows, there are some pay-per-views in some markets where they will do really well. They're not selling out any of these places. Even the places where they'll sell 10,000 tickets, it's not like a legitimate sellout. They're allotting a certain number of... And WWE does that too. But they're allotting a certain number of seats and they're only filling up that allotment. That doesn't mean they actually sold the building out. So it's great that they put 85,000 people in Wembley Stadium, but you cannot deny the fact that they are having issues here in this country for whatever the reason. And I think I think what they need to do more of is run more of these smaller venues in some of these markets, because you're going to run an NBA building and fill it up halfway, and it's not good. You know, it doesn't look good aesthetically to have an NBA arena that you're only filling up maybe half. Run smaller buildings. Yeah, there are certain venues that might be small, but you get a hot crowd in a small building and it could sound great on television. You would think there were 15,000 people in the building. That's something they're going to have to do more of, I think. Can't keep running big buildings in these markets. Now, you know, bringing in somebody like Adam Copeland, maybe that helps. I didn't check to see how many tickets he may have helped add to tonight's Collision. I have not watched Collision yet. I don't know what it looked like in the bill. I don't even know where Collision was tonight. But I know they were advertising him for the show. How many tickets did the addition of Adam Copeland add? I don't know. Based on what I'm hearing, evidently not much. But, you know, Tuesday, they're going to have Title Tuesday next week, and they're hyping his debut match against Luchasaurus, and they've really filled that card up pretty good. You know, you look at that card, Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland, Jericho and Powerhouse Hobbs. Saraya is defending her belt against Shida. And they have a bunch of other matches as well. Jay White. Is Jay White wrestling? I think it's Jay White and Hangman Page on the show. But you would think with the addition of him wrestling his first match, that maybe it could help move an extra 1,000 tickets. The thing is, you got to remember, in WWE even, Edge was not a draw in the way that, like, John Cena would be if they announced, hey, John Cena is being added to the house show this weekend. John Cena's name alone could move 2,000 tickets just by putting his name on the lineup for that show. Even though Edge was not full-time, he was more of a special attraction. He was never that kind of draw for them, where he would really move tickets. You know, he wasn't a needle mover for WWE. So him coming to AEW was a big deal, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to move the needle when it comes to things like ticket sales. It's going to take more than that. And I can't tell you exactly what the problem is. I think it's a bunch of different things. Losing CM Punk hurt. But let's be honest, when CM Punk was there, were they selling out every building they were in? No. It's not like, you know, Punk was packing the buildings either. It's just, I think it's a combination of different things. I think it could also have to do, frankly, with their promotion in certain markets. Maybe they could be doing a better job of promoting the events when they go to some of these cities. I don't know that it's any one thing, but you cannot ignore it and pretend that it's not a problem. It absolutely is. Zachariah, thank you for the $4.99. Since it is the rated R era when he wins the TNT title, live sex celebration with Tony Storm or the AEW women can draw straws. The rated R superstar has been dead for over a decade. He hasn't been rated R probably since that second one night stand show at the Hammerstein. Remember the way he pinned Beulah in that match? Arabian Night, 5 matches, not enough for a pay-per-view. Young talent need a chance to perform on PLEs. 8 matches, a good sweet spot. What are your thoughts? You have to understand something about WWE these days. They're more about the theatrics and the flair. And I joked at the beginning of the review that the first 15 minutes of the show was nothing but video packages and entrances. And that's legit. 15 minutes before the bell rang and we got an actual lockup or an actual move. So they want to devote as much time as they can to the entrances and the video packages and their sponsorships and Pizza Hut. And look what we got. We got 5 matches on this pay-per-view, and the pay-per-view went almost until 11 p.m. I mean, that's a full show off of 5 matches. Do I wish there were more? I don't wish there were more like AEW more, where we have 14 or 15 matches. I think that at least 6 or 7. I think 6 or 7 matches is a good sweet spot. If you want to go 4 hours, then you can have 8 or 9. But on a standard 3-hour-ish pay-per-view, I think 6 is a good number, 6 or 7. So thank you guys for the super chat. See, you remember that pin. You remember that pin on Beulah. Isn't that mad? How could you forget, right? How can we forget? One Night Stand, 2006. It was the night that Rob Van Dam beat John Cena. Very memorable show. Anyway, thank you. You did get us across the finish line for the goal for Be the Booker. We are in excess of 500 likes on this video, so I say thank you. Everybody say hello to Steve Mello, finally joining us live late in the chat. He was at Oktoberfest getting sloshed like a degenerate. Pitiful. Let's be the Booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the Booker.
Pitiful. Out drinking and slobbering all over himself all night. That how they do it up there in Canada? Just in time for Be the Booker, yes indeed. A pay-per-view size edition of Be the Booker. Last night it was a birthday edition. Tonight we begin with, well, would you look at who we have here? It's Mr. Adam Copeland, everybody. It's the Rated R Superstar. This continues a pattern, by the way, of me speaking someone's name and then they magically appear in Be the Booker. Let's see how much of a draw Edge is here on Be the Booker. Let's see. Edge. Gonna go one-on-one with Jacob Fatu. How do you like that match? How about that? Edge and Jacob Fatu, who would fit right in perfectly in the Bloodline. But he is locked in, I think, for many more years with MLW, so not going to happen anytime soon. But former House of Glory World Champion Jacob Fatu, I can vouch for how talented the man is. So there we go. That's a great way to kick things off there. That's a good match. Here we got Alicia Fox. Or as Noam Dar used to say, Alicia Fox. Alicia Fox. Let's see here. Alicia Fox one-on-one with Trish Stratus. Trish is a good worker, but she's not a miracle worker. Tag teams. Here we go. It's funny. I added so many like new little goodies to these things. We haven't landed on them a single time. One of these days, maybe we will. Tag team Be the Booker, we begin with Breezango, Tyler Breeze, and Fandango. And it will be Breezango going one-on-one, going 2-on-2 with the Hart Foundation. And that gets an automatic bell. You know why? Because we have 3 Canadians in this match. Right? Tyler Breeze, right? He's Canadian, I think. Well, I guess Jim Neidhart's not Canadian. What am I talking about? I say Hart Foundation, I automatically think they're all... He's Canadian by marriage, but he's not Canadian by blood. So I guess technically the Anvil would not be Canadian. So I take that back. But the Hart Foundation is among my top 2 favorite tag teams of all time. So got to give that the bell. 2 out of 3. Not bad. Not bad. Paul Carpenter says Paul Heyman with the Ben Franklin. He does look like Ben Franklin. That's a good point. He does look like Ben Franklin. I hadn't put 2 and 2 together like that, but you know what? I guess he does. And Arabian Night says, is Cross done? How do you revive him, or is it too late? I think he's done. I think he's done. I mean, what else are they going to do with him? I mean, I said when they first brought him in, when I used to see him in Impact, and he had that Hitman Agent 47 look going for him, and he had the suit and the tie and everything and the bald head. That was a badass look for him. And I think that I would have introduced him as a heater or a bodyguard for somebody. Silent but deadly. Initially he doesn't do a lot of talking, but he just sort of stands there looking menacing and, managing some kind of smarmy heel. And then eventually, he can turn on the guy and branch out on his own, and because he's a very articulate guy, so then he can start speaking for himself and cutting promos. But I thought that would be the right way to introduce him. And instead, they gave him a great entrance in NXT. And then they had him dressing up like a gladiator. And then he got called up to the main roster. And then I don't even know if you can call it a gladiator or something out of a freaking S&M shop. I don't know what the hell that was, frankly. The whole mask and everything. It's like every step of the way, it just felt like this is not him. He's not coming across the same way as when I first saw him. Like, what is it? What is it that they seem to have right in those other promotions or an Impact that WWE was missing? And now, him and Scarlett, they should be a money combo together, but it's just not clicking. I think part of the issue also is I've seen them on the YouTube channel in these sort of out of character videos. And they're a lot more personable and relatable in those videos when they're just allowed to be themselves. So I think that this is not going to work. And so it's pretty much over and done for him unless they try something radically different. And so what's the harm in allowing them to be themselves and having a complete character overhaul for him on the main roster, whether it's as, baby faces or heels, and just trying something completely different instead of the tarot card and the spooky sort of dark gimmick. It's not working. It's not working. Show me where it's working. You can't, because it's not. So I would like to see them try something different instead of just sort of, letting him flounder around until one day he ends up on the cut list, which almost feels inevitable at this point. If they're not going to do anything, I always say, if they're not really doing anything with you, you're on the bubble. He's on the bubble. So if they don't try something different with him soon, it's not looking good for him. And Daniel Malcolm with the final super chat here. Thank you very much for the $4.99. Christian wants to know, how's your dad? Tomorrow is episode 829 of the Sound Off. It may be out a few hours later than usual. That's usually what happens on these pay-per-view weekends where I'm trying to get my notes together and gather my thoughts on everything that happened the night before. So I have a show to do, but it's going to be covering all of the key news of the week, fallout from tonight, some other interesting stories as far as Hulk Hogan, Shane McMahon, Tammy Sitch. I got some MLW news as well. We'll talk about the head-to-head coming up this Tuesday between AEW and NXT. I've got a lot to say about Adam Copeland, news about his arrival in AEW, and some thoughts on this whole tribalistic viewpoint on him signing with AEW and betraying WWE. I'll put the final word on that. Updates on Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, bunch of things. CM Punk, yes, we will talk about CM Punk as well, of course. So that will all be on episode 829 tomorrow. So keep an eye out for it. Make sure you're subbed on the feed. And so as soon as it hits the feed later in the afternoon, you can stream it, you can download it, you can hug it, you can kiss it, you can date it, you can take it out to the movies, you can make sweet love to it. Whatever you do, just make sure you listen. That's the most important thing. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you to Lewis. If he is still with us, I cannot tell you how grateful I am for your support. That means the world to me. And thank you for all the belated birthday comments as well. So, be well, stay safe. Next time I am live with you will be Monday night for Raw, the post-pay-per-view edition of Raw. Big night coming up on Tuesday. We'll be reviewing something. Not sure yet if it's going to be both shows or just AEW. It might be both. I might try to watch both at the same time, which sounds like a bad idea, but I may try. And so that's going to be coming up. It's going to be a busy few days. Thank you, guys. We'll do it all over again Monday night. Until then, I'll see you for 8:29 later today. And Dr. Bropio coming in at the buzzer here with the final $2. We have to cope with the fact that we lost our edge. Really? That's how we're going to end? We're going to end with a dad joke? That's how we're going to go off the air here? With a horrible... Thank you, Turtlehead. Thank you for saving me. Turtlehead coming in says, does Moxley have any feelings about Kevin Dunn? Well, I don't know. John Moxley hasn't been around for a while. I'm not really sure where he is. He hasn't been around the streams lately. I could ask him. I mean, I could ask Moxley.
Fuck Kevin Dunn.
Well, there you go. He made it very clear. What was that? I didn't hear it.
Fuck Kevin Dunn.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. So nice he had to say it twice. That's how you go off the air. See you guys Monday night.